the teachers really, I think all of the immersion teachers we've had have really gone above and beyond to help out and reach out as best they can to help us with all of our kids' stuff. So greatly appreciate that.
I agree. I second that. Anybody else? Anybody have anything they want to add?
Yeah, I just want to say, this is Lacey. We transferred in and we missed kindergarten, so I just would echo that. We've had a really good transition, better than I expected, especially given the circumstances. And so everybody's just been super helpful, and we've got a preschooler too, I didn't mention, but they both transferred in and are both really loving it. So thank you.
Is there anything that anybody is curious about? Anything that you were wanting to ask other parents that maybe you haven't had a chance to ask other immersion parents about?
I didn't have a question for other immersion parents as of right now, but I was gonna sort of just jump on echoing the work and the time that I know that teachers are putting in right now. The level of rigor is significantly higher than in the spring, which I obviously appreciate. For him, he's busy the majority of the school day on his distance learning time, engaged in academics, using Google Translate to look up words that he doesn't know or isn't familiar with. And then we've tried to supplement a little bit with a Spanish tutor one night a week for like an hour, just having some additional language practice and vocabulary practice that he doesn't get because he's not in the immersion 5 days a week. But greatly appreciate all the hard work that the teachers are doing.
I had a question for some more experienced parents. This is our first experience with the Spanish immersion program because we moved here a year ago and our other kiddos are older, so it wouldn't have worked for them. There's a lot of, Senior Hannah is doing an awesome job of getting materials out there, and we can get through it. And if we can really focus, we can get through it relatively quickly. Is there anything that that you all like to do outside of some of the things that are assigned that work well kind of for that level, like the kindergarten first level?
We really like the graphic novel section at the Lake Elmo Library. They have a whole section of Spanish, and so we supplement sometimes the books with the Lake Elmo Library books. It's a silly little thing, but my kids dig that. So, and you can even like request it and then pick it up if you don't want to go inside. So that's been kind of cool.
Yeah. Oh, sorry if somebody was.
Yeah, so this is Teal. We have Linnea, who is in 3rd grade, and the Stillwater Public Library has a pretty large Spanish-speaking young adult. Like they have like the Junie B. Jones. They've got the Magic Tree House, all in Spanish, which I was super pleased because she's they're getting kind of bored with the reading on the computer, so that's been really nice. And since we're home, my only struggle because I feel like Linnea is getting, she's getting conversational Spanish just throughout the day because she's online with her teachers and her the other students. And so they're talking, and so I'm hearing that. But with my 1st grader, there's not they're still not quite there yet with really knowing what the words mean. And so that's the only thing I feel like I can't help with, is that like she's just not getting that conversational Spanish. So she's reading the Spanish words, but she's not quite, doesn't really know what they are. And so I just feel like that's not as fun. But yeah, so I'm curious if people are having them watch like Spanish cartoons or, you know, something like that to just, so they're hearing more Spanish during the day. But that's kind of where we're at. So.
I'll kind of jump in on that and say we do turn the TV to Spanish. That's one way, and especially at first, last spring and all summer, really. If James wanted to watch a show or a movie or something, then at least a couple times a day I'd say, okay, you can, but it has to be in Spanish. And it was nice too, because he'd watch things that he was familiar with. So he knew the story, he knew what they were saying, and was able, I think, to retain more than I anticipated he would between kindergarten and first grade. So yeah, totally turn the TV to Spanish. It helps.
There's another parent. He has a second grader. She's done a Spanish blog. Jenna is her name. And she recommended doing monthly subscription boxes called Hola Amigo. We do those. Love them. We do the early learner box for my kindergartner. We do the elementary box for my second grader. And then we also are online with Sarah's Spanish School. And we've been doing some online classes we pretty much do the pre-recorded, but those have helped out a ton, and all the YouTube videos that are out there. So but I would look at Jenna's blog. I know she's put up on the website, on the Facebook group. So I would check that out.
Jenna, is there anything new that you've just added? Any other tips to kind of add on to what Misty said and what some of the other parents have said?
Yeah. Thanks, Misty, for the shout out. And I'm glad you like the Hola Amigo boxes, because they've been a big hit with our kiddos too. For those of you who haven't used them before, they're just the most engaging, awesome subscription boxes that come with, they're very culturally relevant books, games. The last one we had a making your own agua fresca recipe to do with your kids, and cute Mexican market book that we read together, and activities. And but I would add that we listen to a lot of Spanish music at our house. We listen to audiobooks. We also switch, like some other parents mentioned, we switch our Spanish shows. We do learning apps too, and there's so many things that we do during the day that we can switch to Spanish. And so, yeah, if you're interested, I have like Spotify music playlists that you can turn on, recommendations for YouTube channels for specific learning goals, apps and that kind of stuff on my website. I did Thanksgiving books last week.
What is the website? I'm sorry, this is a blog that you're writing, Jenna?
Yeah, so I started it back in February when we had another meeting, and I heard a lot of, these are my 3 kiddos. I just, heard a lot from families about, questions, concerns, how can we most, help, and what resources should we use? And I, as a former Spanish immersion teacher, I taught first grade, second grade, and I was a literacy specialist for my elementary building. I stay home full time right now, but I thought, okay, maybe that's a way that I can kind of help, or at least put some resources out there and try to impact, a family or two. So It's called Bilingual Balance, and it's just bilingualbalance.com. And you can, find free printables and activities, resource lists, that kind of stuff. If you ever have any ideas for me, I'm open to input and, writing a post about, things that interest you or resources you'd like.
I just reshared. There was the parent resources that was sent last spring that has a whole bunch of websites, YouTube sites. It also includes Jenna's website in there as well. And it also has other other programs that are in the Twin Cities area, like camps and things like that. So that is in the chat if you want to look for it there. Angie had mentioned a couple minutes ago, she said she was trying to find ways to have more informal time when kids can speak Spanish together. Have you guys tried that with friends or classmates? How successful have you been with that? Or maybe just finding groups throughout the Twin Cities?
I was going to say we've done some, but it seems like they revert to English pretty quickly, unfortunately. The one thing that we have used is it's a website called OutSchool. They have some classes that are, usually $10 or less per hour. And he has done some of those that are Spanish. And even one of them is they play or they have to build something with Legos, but during it, they're giving all the directions in Spanish and they're recommending to speak in Spanish too. So, and it's interesting because they meet kids that are all across the United States and across the world too.
Yeah, we've used OutSchool just to kind of catch Marley up before we started, and we really liked it. She did a class on cats in Spanish, and so she loved it.
I would really like to buy books, or I like to buy books for my kids for Christmas, but it's really hard to know the right level, the just right level in Spanish. I can usually figure out the leveled books in English, but is there a way the colors are harder for me to understand. Is there a way to do that? Does anybody have any tips on that?
Thanks, Molly. That's a really good question. I will make sure we get that information out to families. I can work with the Amigos Unidos team to make sure that's out there so people can kind of use those areas to kind of narrow in on the books and the literature to purchase for their kids.
Thank you.
Also, I just want to let you know, we have been planning to update the district website since last spring, and for a host of different reasons, it's been delayed. So unfortunately, we haven't done a lot, to upgrade the school website with resources. However, I did just put a final approval in on the language that will be going in. And we just got it back and translated, I believe, today. So I'm anticipating that sometime in the next several weeks, you'll see a revision in the website, which I hope will provide some additional resources as well.
I apologize. The link that I sent you guys for some reason didn't work. So let me try this. Why don't you try this link for the list of resources? And if that doesn't work, then I'll just, I could just email you guys afterwards too. I thought I had pulled up a, and while we're doing that, while you guys are testing that out, what are some things that you guys have been struggling with, whether it's just social emotional aspect of distance learning? Is it just, you know, not being able to, I guess, losing some of their Spanish for your kids, or what frustrations have they experienced or you have experienced in the last few months?
I'm curious to know if any other kids tell their parents, I don't like learning in Spanish. I'm hoping that that's just a common thing. I just say, well, you're good at it and it's good for you.
So I know with my kindergartner, he hates learning in Spanish, but this is also a struggle for him, learning from home. He wants to be at school. My second grader loves Spanish, but hates writing in Spanish. And it's very difficult for me because I can't help him write. I know words, but I can't put it together. So yeah, I'm hoping it's normal, and I'm hoping it's just this time, and that it'll get better.
I think it does kind of get better. I can remember I've got a second grader now, and there were a few times where whether there was frustration or just self-doubt creeping in, and she would start to talk about not liking it. But at the same time, it was interesting to see how her mind worked, because currently she's the most fluent Spanish speaker in our household. And we start talking about other languages that we do speak around our house and finding the connections between more of the Latin-based languages, and all of a sudden recognizing how one word sounds a lot like another word that she's learning about, and finding other ways to kind of connect to how global language can be.
So Ian's in hybrid on B days, and one thing that I've noticed, especially with a couple of the breaks here in between, and then last week where he had more time at home, almost this fear of going back into school the next day, or when it's, you know, and he loves being at school, like almost like his favorite place in the world, but I don't know if it's just that he has more time at home, if it is, you know, third grade is harder, and the math is getting really hard in third grade, and a lot of expected of them. And I know that's an area where he feels like he really struggles, but it's a strength of his. So I don't know if it's just his own nervousness about performing well, but I'm grateful that he's there 2 days a week. I wish that it could be more, and I wish that sometimes there weren't those interruptions, because I worry about him not being there face to face.
So I can be the vulnerable parent that speaks up. In full transparency, hoping that there are others on this call, we are really struggling. Both my husband and I work full time, and it is, the homework is great. I mean, it definitely is, you know, keeps both of the kids busy. I feel like it's a long period of time that they're doing it, but my husband and I work full time. And so on those days, we're B students. So even on Mondays and Wednesdays, like, we have a tutor for the kids for 3 hours a day. And my daughter, I would say, can, in first grade, she can definitely get through her assignments without our help or little help from us. I would say my son is not to that point. And it's sometimes it's, you know, I need directions with this, or just that confidence, I think, that like you're doing the right thing. So, you know, Julie, we're just the opposite of you. I would say, like, math, he can pick that up and do it no problem. It's the reading and the writing piece that he struggles a little bit more. But I think it's just the whole piece of, like, how are people, what tips and tricks do people have that they can share? Are you getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning to help your kids? It's hard when the weather's been nice now. Don't really want to make them wait until we get done with work at 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock in the afternoon to start the homework because it takes so long. Is anybody else struggling with this, or are we just that weird family that?
Oh my God, I'm so glad you said something, Paula.
Not just you.
Not just you.
It's hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, my husband and I both work full time too, and I am going back to school, and it is insane. And my parents try to help us out as much as possible, but there is no way to get through everything without being that horrible parent that is constantly nagging my kids. Yeah, I hear you. I don't know any tips or tricks. And my son can work the devices better than I can. I don't even know what he can do on there. I don't know how he does what he can do. He's really good at computers.
Paula, I was just going to say, I should text you and we should have a conversation. Paula and I are neighbors or live like 2 blocks away from each other. So on Wednesdays in particular, I know Ian's usually always with me, and whether calling or whether or not they get together and work on some of their work together, like we're open. So
awesome. Thank you. Yeah.
I would just like to say
my
that.
Husband and I,
go ahead. I'll go.
are you sure you can go?
Okay. I just want to say that I am very appreciative of the of Lake Elmo changing the time that the online learning gets sent to us at 7 a.m. versus 8 a.m. because it truly allows our early riser to get a jump start at it before our workday starts as parents. So that's been very, very helpful, and I'm very appreciative of that.
So you guys get started right away in the morning.
He's an early riser, and it's just super helpful because most of my Zoom meetings start somewhere around 9 o'clock in the morning, and he can get a good chunk of it done between 7 and 9. So I'm very appreciative of that, because I understand that it's just the immersion program that's starting at 7 and everybody else is still starting at 8.
Paula, and I totally hear your concern. If I didn't have Ian's really a self-starter at home, but if he wasn't that way, I don't know how I would be able to support him. I mean, he works on his own pretty much all day long and gets done what he needs to get done. But I'm a school social worker, so I've got Zoom calls all day with kids, and it's really hard. I have specifically blocked off like lunchtime where that's dedicated, where I just have that time with him, and work has to be flexible around that for me. So, but.
My husband and I both work full time, and we're both on Zoom calls all day long. And my husband also goes to accounts because he's in sales. So we really wanted the kids to go to Lake Elmo Elementary and be there in person, but we just couldn't handle the inconsistency of the hybrid approach. So we have all of our kids, I have a 3-year-old as well as the kindergartner and the 2nd grader, going to this bilingual child care center in Matamidi. So my younger 2 started in the summer. So it was really helpful for my kindergartner, who had a whole summer of Spanish before she jumped into kindergarten. And then they opened up a school age program where we just send them all in, and they bring their laptops and all their paperwork. And then during the day there, they help them, they have staff that helps them with their schoolwork and with their Zoom calls. And then they have daycare hours. So my husband and I always utilize the after school adventure club, so we can pick them up when our Zoom calls are done, and they have the majority of their work completed. And it's a bilingual school, so they speak all Spanish, so they're in that environment as well. So that's been our saving grace, even though I want them to be at Lake Elmo so badly, and they want to be there. They were there last year and they miss it so much, but that just works best for us this way for now.
Jessica, excuse me, Jessica, my child doesn't go to the Spanish immersion that your children do right now, but I have a couple other friends whose kids do at a couple different ages. And they just say excellent things, just that it's a really, really wonderful option and opportunity, and if you need childcare and you're paying for childcare anyway, that it's a really
Yeah.
nice way to bridge that. And so I'm glad you brought that up, because I think it's good for people to know that that resource is really close by.
I know we were lucky that we were able to get into the school day adventure club at Lake Elmo because my husband's role is classified as tier 1 for his job. One thing I would suggest is checking with your employers to see if job classifications are changing within your organizations, because I know right now I'm at a tier 2 and I need to check to see if that has changed as things have kind of drawn out as COVID continues, and we'll organize a response. So if you are a tier 1, I know that you are prioritized for getting into Adventure Club. And I'm guessing that that would also help if you're looking at daycare options outside of the school-based model too.
One thing we have also struggled at times with getting to the end of the day and being like, all right, you know, at 7 o'clock is not the time to be correcting homework, or, you know, me sitting on Google Translate trying to figure out what these questions, these math problems mean. So one thing I started after the first couple weeks when we had tiers every night was that I save it on Fridays. I know he's going to have extra time. And so anything that I really feel like he didn't do an adequate job, or like he didn't finish completely, I don't know if this is allowed or not, but I've been doing it I'm just putting it till Friday, because he's going to have extra time on that Friday when he has, you know, just distance learning. And then he does all of the catch up or corrections to things that I don't think he's done all the way. Took a lot of stress and a lot of tears off of every night.
We've certainly been on the struggle bus too, with both of us working full time. My husband took a new job at the beginning of the year, and sometimes I'm called in the middle of the night to go to work. Sometimes I'm able to kind of work from home. It's kind of all over the place, but we found with our kindergartner, if we start in the afternoon and have him doing a lot of playing outside and just getting that energy out in the morning, that's really helped him to focus more and be more engaged. That's kind of helped for us. We did have a temporary issue where he was going into YouTube and watching random videos instead of doing schoolwork. We try not to hover over him. We try to get him started and kind of let him independently work through things. But if anyone else is struggling with that, you can add a Chrome extension to put a password on YouTube. So that was a good thing we figured out. Yeah, that's kind of where we're at. It's hard. As a parent who, like, I'm a little type A, and I felt like before I always had my stuff together, and now like nothing's normal anymore. I think for me, I've kind of like let go a little of, like, we don't have to be perfect. We just need to love each other and just survive and get through the day, and it's gonna be okay. So that's been one thing for us, is just like letting go a little. And if we're all having a really, really bad day, that like we'll just skip it that day, and we'll like work those lessons in over like the next couple days. And that's worked well for us.
And I hope every parent, you know, takes advantage of that kind of autonomy that you have. I mean, there are those times, and you all know this as parents, when it's okay to push and you know, expect. There are other times where you need to, you know, back off and let things go too, and use that. Just like all of us, our children need that grace and tolerance as well. They're suffering, albeit differently than we are, as they're trying to make sense of and managing their world as well. Children really thrive on routine, and you know, all of that has been upended to an nth degree. So I applaud all of you, you know, for being here, for having the conversation, but give yourselves and your children some grace as well. And certainly don't do what I did. I raised my voice at my children once upon a time and told them, you will do it. You will do your homework this way, because I am the principal and I tell teachers how things are done. That didn't work.
I have a question. My son is hybrid, and I'm not sure how like the 100% online learning works. But would there be an opportunity for like the hybrid kids on the days that they're home, like so Monday, Wednesday, to jump in on like a morning meeting or something with the online kids just for like 20 minutes to hear the calendar or just get that interaction? I think that that would really kind of help set the tone of the school day and just give them a little bit of structure.
It's a great question. Some of you asked me this back in the spring and in the summer. Our technology department actually purchased for the specifically for the immersion team cameras that could be used in that manner. And we're bogged down because we're waiting for the professional development to come for the teachers to use the equipment. So as you could imagine, the company that organizes and sells the equipment is overwhelmed with requests. And so, you know, the equipment is there. A couple of teachers even have it in their room. They've played a little bit with it. But I think the teachers are feeling a little uncomfortable. There are some liability issues regarding, you know, the viewing of a common meeting and having images broadcast from a classroom to home and from a home into the classroom that we want to sort through with the company and the tech department before we launch into that. So that is something that we have really looked into and are trying to get up and going. And quite honestly, I really had hoped we'd have it. I knew there were going to be some challenges. I thought we'd have it up and going in mid to late October. So I'm disappointed that it's not up and going yet.
I highly regret last spring correcting my daughter when she would wave at the videos that the teachers sent, because if she still believed that everything was live, then she would think they could see her, and she couldn't stop paying attention. And I'm just kicking myself because now she knows.
I'm going to pause the conversation for just 1 second. There's been some great additions to the chat. Jessica posted the link for the daycare, and I know Jenna had posted a couple resources as well. And then I got up a link that actually does work. I turned it into a PDF, so that resources link is in here as well. At the end of this, since I'm recording the meeting, I will make a YouTube video, and I'll share it with all the other immersion parents. And so if there's something that you said, oh, somebody mentioned something about XYZ, you can go back to the video. So I'll include some of the chat that we've had too. So if there's a link or something that you wish you had, I'll make sure to get that to you guys too. So one thing that Jen Nelson had emailed me today, and I think it might be in that list of resources as well, but there's a new daycare or school in Woodbury, Alma Flor Ada, Spanish immersion. And I don't have all the details of it. It's a private daycare, so I don't know what the cost would be for that, but sounds like it was pretty popular, and so I don't know if they would even have any openings, if that's something you'd be interested in this year. But I did just send the link to everybody in chat as well, so if you want to take a look at that too. One question that I had, Stephen, please don't kill me, just because it's on top of everybody's mind right now. With the cases going up, the COVID cases, and with secondary planning on going to full distance, do you have any idea at this point, Stephen, the likelihood that elementary will follow suit in the next few weeks? What does that look like for you guys for planning?
It's a little bit of a elephant in the room. There's a couple of things that are out there that I want to just let families be aware of too. So, we all know the board made that decision. Stillwater is moving in a direction where the board makes the decision. So the next opportunity to have that discussion would be on the 19th of November. And again, the school board would make that decision. For those of you that have been following it, initially schools were making decisions based on how many COVID cases were taking place in the county. And then with some feedback from the Commissioner of Education, Department of Education, Department of Health, they asked school districts to take a more precise, or I guess scalpeled approach, they described it, which would mean that you consider your county infection rate, but you also look at what's happening in the schools, in your school district, and how many cases, confirmed cases there are. Up until a week and a half ago, we were actually doing quite well. I can tell you last week, and it seems this week, are presenting some more challenges just in terms of the staff piece, quite honestly. It's making sure that we have subs available, because substitute teachers are like gold right now, and they're very difficult to get. So managing a program from that end is a challenge. With all of that said, no one is saying for certain that we're going to go out on this date, or before Thanksgiving or after Thanksgiving, or November 30th. It's only something that we've talked about, but we've been talking about it since September, quite honestly. So it's hard for me to really nail anything down. Quite honestly, if you brought the superintendent in, I'm not sure she'd know the answer to that. I think all of us want to keep the schools open as long as we can, and as long as it's safe for everyone. And again, as long as we can manage the outbreaks and things like that, I think our goal is to keep the school open. So I apologize, Renee. I don't have a definitive answer to that, and I know people are really eager to know that. Quite honestly, I'd like to know what the direction is going to be, but I think we're going to kind of live in this for a little bit, the ambiguity for a little bit. Also know that there was an executive order that came out last week by the governor that adds additional prep time for teachers in their school day. So one of the things we're working on as administrators right now is to determine, how we manage that. So how we typically create preparation time for teachers in a school day is when the students are out of the classroom and they're going to music, physical education, media, or art. And then the teacher would get what is considered a preparation time or a planning time. Our goal is to have teachers collaborate during that time to work in teams to do planning for instruction. They have some preparation time before school, some after school, and then by contract, they have some time during the school day. This year, we reduced that amount of time from 40 minutes, which they had last year, to 30 minutes. And the reason why we did that is because specialists were seeing students from all across the building. We wanted to give them 10 minutes of additional cleaning and preparation time as students were coming into either art, music, phy-ed. So it was still a 40-minute block. It's just that the teachers don't get the full 40 minutes of prep time. They only get 30 minutes. The extra 10 minutes are given to that specialist to do cleaning and preparation.
Okay.
So how and when we add that additional 30 minutes, I'm not sure, but that has to be done by the 30th of November. So that likely will have an impact on the school day in some way. And I know others of you who are in public education are likely in the same boat trying to scramble to figure out what all that means.
In our last few minutes here, I'll just kind of open it up for any remaining questions or comments or concerns or thoughts anybody might have. But did you guys find this helpful? Would you want to do this again? We could make it like an every other month thing. We can even do it in the summer if you want. Is it helpful to be able to connect with other people, with other parents, and to just have a place where you could say, I've got a question, but in a couple weeks we're going to meet anyway, so maybe I'll just hang on to it. Or you can jump on the Facebook group too and do that. So just if thumbs up, thumbs down, I won't, we won't be offended, but, or just go, meh, if you kind of, I liked it. Yeah. Awesome. Great.
Hey, I just had a question. This is Kathy. It was a follow-up, Stephen, to your comments. And is there a possibility for, if we're looking at elementary school to have to do distance learning as well, is it possible to maybe be able to maintain that for the immersion program, or to even move the immersion program to a different physical location that would allow for social distancing, like to seek some sort of exemption?
So there is an exemption allowed, and that is something that I've approached administration about, regarding having the immersion program present. So I think they're looking at the original document that the governor sent out back in the summer to find out if the immersion program would qualify. And so if we, do in fact get more serious about when and how we're going to do that, that's something that I'll share with people once we have that determined. I did reach out last week. We started those conversations, but I have not looped back with district administration to determine if that's a possibility. I think, I do know there are some exceptions. I know our level 3 special education program will continue to have students in the school. I know there are certain exemptions. I'm just not sure the program specifically qualifies. So that's something that they were working to determine.
Okay, thank you. If there's something we can do from a parent support perspective too, let us know.
Yeah.
Yeah, sort of building on that point, is there any additional advocacy that this group can do with regard to district leadership that would help?
That's always a good question. At this time, I don't think so. I think the challenge for district administration is trying to, determine, just sort of the day-to-day and some of the things that are going on here. So the world is much different for them as it is for all of us. Obviously, the school board and its makeup will be changing. And so I think as we roll into this, the end of winter, the spring of next year, and we have our new board seated, I do think there will be more conversations about the future of Lake Elmo. Then I think it will be really important for parents to be involved in those conversations. I think the advocacy, probably next winter, or not next winter, but the end of this winter, spring, that we'll need is just making sure that the support is there for transitioning smoothly to a middle school model, and making sure the board is aware of that. And, in order to do that, it's going to require some additional money. And, despite the many challenges that we're facing, the district has got some big decisions that they're going to have to make in the next year. One of them is going to be, figuring out the replacement levy. And I would hope that as discussion publicly begins, and I think that'll start happening in the next few months, as public discussions start happening about the renewal of the levy, then that's where I think it'll be really important for your voices to be heard. Because this is a program that is going to need some additional support, especially as we transition to the middle school.
I have one more question, and Renee. I know from a PTA perspective, part of that is teacher appreciation, but I'll just ask, outside of copious amounts of liquor or wine or sugar, is there anything else that we can do for these teachers?
I actually just, and this would be for everybody because I wrote to them asking for a donation for the PTA as a whole. But I believe it was Acapulco. It was one of the local Mexican restaurants, but they offered to give like a free pan or two of food for our teachers, for teacher appreciation. And so I said that I would ask you, Stephen. So it's a conversation that we'll have. And I don't know how safely we could do that, or if it'd have to be prepackaged, or what the deal would be there. But that's always an option if we wanted to do something for the teachers. I know, are the teachers meeting in person at all, Stephen? The immersion teachers?
Not as a group, no.
Okay. Because I would say if you did, it would be nice to have just like little maybe box lunches or something, or whatever. But I don't know.
No. There are, small teams meet, but as a group, we have not met in person.
Something to bring up at the next meeting. Everybody think about it. And then
Okay, I'm going to stick with sugar and copious amounts of wine and liquor. Then I'll go with that.
Class kittens.
Class kittens. Stress puppies. Should we bring in some puppies?
Yeah.
Does anybody have any final thoughts before we go, or?
But even on that, if there's resources or anything, I mean, I know in the past teachers have like put out lists of like things that they need on Amazon or something like that. We are all looking at for ways to support. So anything that they could do as far as a list for us to support them, I think all of us would like other ways. So if you could like even specifically ask them and like have them come up with a list of additional resources, that would be great. I've even thought of like, do they want clay or do they want anything to help with it?
I've seen lists online of just questionnaires that teachers are asked, like what are your favorite stores, what are your least favorite, gift cards to get. And I think it'd be interesting too, just to see what teachers struggle with the most. Like, do you have trouble going grocery shopping? Then maybe we'll get them grocery gift cards. Or do you have trouble making dinner at night? That kind of thing, and just make it more focused per teacher. And I think we have a small enough group that we could do that. So I'll start asking, and then as the holidays approach, then we'll get some ideas out there, and then I'll make sure to send it out to everybody. Yeah, great. Well, if anybody has any other questions, feel free to stay on. Anybody else that needs to get going, thank you guys so much for coming. I'll try to get another date out. Does Monday seem to be okay? I don't know if there's a better night, compared to the other nights of the week, but yeah, great.
Thank you, Renee, for scheduling. Really appreciate you pulling this together. We're not always able to attend, but it is always helpful once you are able to attend to just hear from other parents. So thank you, guys.
Awesome. Well, no problem.
And thanks, Principal Gorde.
Absolutely. Thank you, Renee. Thanks for everyone. Thanks for your participation.
So I'll get the video out to the Facebook group, and we'll send an email out to you with some of the resources and links that were in the chat too. So thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful night. Have a great week.
Thanks.
All right. Good night.